everyone, I'm Elizabeth Timbol and welcome to Pairfect, where we explore the heart of passion, purpose, and the connections that shape who we are. Today, we savor a proudly Filipino story of artistry, culture, and indulgence. Our guest is the visionary behind CMV Txokolat, the artisanal chocolate brand that transforms fine chocolate making into a celebration of Filipino identity, heritage, and flavor. Please welcome to Pairfect, Master Chocolatier, Christian Valdes.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you very much for the perfect introduction. So, as you know, CMV Txokolat is really my love child. It is where I bring my love for chocolate and food and my love for Filipino culture together to create something truly unique.
Okay, so you just mentioned it's really about creating something that's Filipino and something that's unique. So your brand has become known for turning chocolate into storytelling, infusing Filipino culture into the flavors that you add to it. So how did your journey into chocolate making begin, and what inspired you to build a brand rooted in Filipino heritage?
Oh, well, it actually started from different start points. So basically, my love for chocolate started in San Francisco, and also through my lola. So my lola used to actually keep stock of all these imported chocolates in her TV room. So I remember that I would always raid it with my sister. We would wait for my lola to sleep, and then we would raid her fridge. So I always was curious about how chocolate was made. Now, I grew up in San Francisco also, so there was, how do you call it, a lot of chocolate influence from cheese candy to Ghirardelli. So I was always wondering how they came up with the flavors, where it came from, how they got the fillings and the designs in there. So I mean, my interest was always piqued, and it wasn't until 14 years ago that we decided that we really wanted to start something that married Philippine culture and chocolate together. And there wasn't much of an industry yet. So it was a lot of studying, a lot of learning how we can do this.
So it was chocolate that brought you to Manila?
Actually, it wasn't. It was my family. It was education. And it was a hobby at first, and then it started to kind of pay the bills, and it kept my intrigue and my focus. I have ADHD, so there are times where I'm like really just all over the place, bouncing off the walls, and this allowed me to exercise it as a creative outlet, but at the same time, it also allowed me to sit down and focus.
Okay, would you remember the first flavor that you came up with?
Yes, and it was awful. I think one of the first experiments that we did was the margarita.
Okay.
So it was using really bad tequila. I'm not even going to name the brand, but I remember trying it. It was like eating gasoline.
Oh, okay.
So back to the drawing board. It wasn't even a Filipino flavor, but it was gasoline in bite-sized form.
But you've come a long way from there.
I hope so.
Okay, but starting a luxury artisanal chocolate brand takes both skill and courage. So what were the biggest challenges you faced when you were first building CMV?
I think the challenges that I faced really building this brand were two things. As a chocolatier, you have to be very creative to come up with the flavors, and creativity does come at a price. It's looking for the best ingredients, doing the right R&D, and that's expensive. Now, being the business owner, I also have to say, oh, reel it back, Chris.
Yeah, you have to find a balance.
It's quite expensive. So it's finding the most cost-effective, using the best ingredients, but also ensuring that you're not doing too much and spending too much to achieve the result, and also getting creative to create that result while using what you have available.
Okay, so since we're talking about creativity and your whole process, so I know that your flavors, you use a lot of Filipino flavors. You've experimented with savory flavors in putting it into your chocolate. So what is that process like? How do you develop new flavors and concepts?
So our process behind that is quite unique. So it varies from flavor to flavor. So whether it is memory or whether it is history or food, each process has one key takeaway, one key thing that we have to consider. And that's how to get all the elements and get that essence into chocolate. So for example, let's say like our CMV chocolate.
Which I hear is a bestseller.
Yes,
Okay.
it's actually one of my favorites.
Okay.
Maybe it's a bestseller because I'm the one eating it. But all jokes aside, we basically got all the flavor elements. When you think about sisig, what flavors stand out to you?
For me, it would maybe be, there's the umami notes from the pork, and then you have the onion, and of course the spice.
Yes.
Yes.
So we take all of those elements and we figure out the best way to capture that one bite at a time through
Yeah.
chocolate. And I mean, you've seen chocolates, they're like that
Small
big.
pieces, yeah,
They're
triple,
bite sized.
yeah.
So it's really getting those elements and making sure that it translates through the bite, but also what you see and what you smell. We
Yeah.
have to encapsulate that in the chocolate as well. So you're not just building the flavor, you're building the texture, you're building the visual elements, but
Yeah.
recreated into a bite.
But how long does that process take for you?
It can be really quick, but it can also take a while. So, I mean, sometimes it can take a day.
Yeah.
And there have been other instances where it's taken up to a month to
Okay.
just like build. So like heavy R&D, by the time we have the finished product, my team and I are probably very tired of it already.
Okay. Well, I guess this is like asking you who your favorite child is, if you had kids. But do you
Yeah.
have a favorite flavor that you've created so far?
Yes. It's definitely like making me choose a favorite child.
Yeah.
But right now, I would have to say it would be the pili nut,
Okay.
Jandusha. So that one we haven't really released yet.
Okay.
So you heard it first.
Coming out
um,
soon.
Coming out soon. So I really like it because it's almost like a peely butterscotch flavor.
Okay.
And I'm not a big fan of white chocolate or milk chocolate on a daily basis. It's more like a warm hug for me when I've had a long day.
Yeah.
But with this one, you get the delicate flavor of the pili nut. You're also getting those caramel notes. And
Yeah.
I can't stop at one. It's just like I keep on popping them back. So good thing I swim.
Good thing you swim.
Yeah.
But what is the inspiration behind, like, how did you come up with this flavor?
I think pili nuts are truly unique. They almost taste like almonds to me a bit,
Yeah.
but they have a high fat content. So when you process it into a janduja, which is basically like a praline,
Okay.
a praline with a little bit of chocolate in it, it's quite unique. And it's unique in the sense that it highlights a Filipino ingredient, but elevated.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice. So basically, and I have heard this before, saying that people who eat your chocolate consider it to be a cultural experience. You know, because again, you play a lot with like local flavors. But how do you translate something? I mean, like you've talked about making chocolate using sisig and then the pili nut. So how do you marry that? You know, because chocolate is not endemic to the Philippines, I believe. I mean, not as widely
Yes.
endemic to the Philippines.
So, I guess you would say that chocolate is, I guess, the vessel that carries our history. So our history is so rich in everything that we wanted to use chocolate as a medium in order to share this. And our heritage and our culture itself is, and I'll geek out about this a bit.
Go ahead.
So it's so rich. So how do we communicate this? I mean, language has barriers,
Yeah.
but I feel that food and taste is something that we all have, something that we can all relate to. So we really wanted to create a love letter. And we used chocolate to do it. It's a little difficult, but if you're able to tweak it, then you can really create something beautiful. And and I feel like this sets us apart, but each bite of chocolate is a story in its own.
Okay.
So that's a story through our eyes that we can share with you. So you just get it when you try it. Now, chocolate is also quite unique because in the Philippines, cacao came to the Philippines back, I think, in 1666 on the Acapulco galleon trade. So we were actually the first country in Southeast Asia to propagate cacao. So it made it part of our heritage. And because we were the first in Southeast Asia, it's also our way of sharing that with other countries that now have something similar, have cacao. So it ties us all together, but it also makes us unique.
Okay. So you talk about how we propagate cacao here in the Philippines, and I know that you've been doing a lot of tours all around the country, working with local farmers to teach them about sustainability and how proper farming and so that it becomes a livelihood for them. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So it's actually quite interesting because when I got into this, I was, okay, we're just making chocolate. We're just making chocolate.
Yeah.
But I got curious and it became kind of like a rabbit hole. I mean, I make chocolate. I know where it comes from, but we have it here. And I was just like, I want to know the people behind it.
Yeah.
The people who are producing this cacao, I mean, what's their story? How will their story inspire me?
Yeah.
And here I was reaching out to DTI in Kalinga. They were actually one of the first people that I reached out to, DTI and DOST. And they said, why don't you come and visit? We can introduce you to some of the farmers. And I remember that visit very vividly. It was like I had come home.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I felt like I learned so much about their needs, what they're producing. And I said, okay, well, I want to be able to hear more people's stories and do more. So little by little, I started to learn outside of the country from people who already had different processes on propagation, post-harvest processing. And I said, well, how do we take this information and bring it back to the farmers here? So I've been trying as best as I can to teach these standards so that way we can really stand out and create something that would put us on the map as the best cacao producers and chocolate producers here.
Have you been using a lot of local chocolate in your products?
So little by little, yes, we have been. Before we were using imported chocolate, we still are, but we also want to highlight that a lot of the beans for these imported chocolates are actually from the Philippines. And as we've been building our relationship with the farmers, we've also been incorporating those and really creating different origins for this chocolate because of terroir, because of the genetic clusters that they belong to. It's quite unique and it allows us to really highlight the depth and flavor of these cacao.
That's such a great advocacy, Chris. Okay, so it's such a wonderful conversation with Christian Valdes. We'll get to know more about him later after the commercial break.
This break is brought to you by Meralco, ang liwanag ng bukas. SM, we've got it all for you. Union Bank, it starts with you.
Usapang OFW is the show that honors the journeys of our modern-day heroes, our OFWs. Join Chingmi Fernandez, John Dodson, and Rafi Ayang every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. to hear the real stories behind the sacrifices. Watch it live on Daily Tribune's Facebook page, Tribune now on YouTube, and Daily Tribune Official on TikTok.
Want to hear from thought leaders shaping our world? Straight Talk with Chito Lazada and Ted Montelibano dives into leadership, politics, and business every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Catch conversation live on Daily Tribune's Facebook page, Tribune now on YouTube, and Daily Tribune Official on TikTok.
Welcome back to Pairfect. We're still here with Mr. Christian Valdes. So Chris, tell me, as an entrepreneur in a very niche industry, what key lessons have you learned about innovation, discipline, and staying inspired? Although I would imagine it isn't hard to not be inspired with chocolate.
Actually, you know what? Funny enough, it can, when it comes to chocolate, a lot of people have this notion that, oh, it's sweet. But other people from other parts of the world say, okay, it can actually be used in savory applications. I guess the most famous would be mole.
Yes.
But some of the things that I've learned, especially when it comes to innovating, tastes change, especially I'm not getting any younger. So I want to always make sure that my products, let's say the recipes that I use to develop some of the flavors need to evolve, not just because I think they're not perfect, but because subjects like taste, it changes.
Yeah. That's true.
The demographics are going in different directions. So we really want to make sure that we can create something that translates through all the generations. We keep on evolving. This helps us stay innovative.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to, let's say, inspiring, it's through interaction.
Okay.
I stare at my computer screen a lot because I have to do paperwork. I have to do this. That's the business side.
Yeah, the business side.
But I appreciate traveling, whether it's traveling internationally or traveling locally, because these interactions with people, places, different food, different ingredients, this all allows me to create something new,
Yeah.
to improve upon certain things. And it also allows me to really stay on top of it. So that way, whether it's something you're trying or something that someone else is trying, it will help inspire you. It'll help also open the idea to different feedback and interactions that might also inspire me.
So you've spoken about interactions and feedback from people who buy your chocolate. So, and we all know that food and taste, they're all linked to core memories that we have. So what is the most, would you have an anecdote as to, you know, something very interesting that a customer's told you when they received a box of your chocolates, or maybe when they've tried your different flavors?
Actually, we've had several, and it's quite funny how we all share certain memories, especially as a person who didn't grow up in the Philippines. When I've created something, or when my team and I have created something that was uniquely Filipino, and how many people related to it, I found that quite interesting. Case in point, our gumamela chocolate.
Okay.
So this is probably one of my favorite examples because what did you do with gumamela flowers when you were a child?
I remember we would pound it, and then it'll become like this whole sticky mess, and I tried to get my sister to eat it. That's what I used to do with it.
So I mean, like, similar to that.
Yeah.
I mean, not getting other people's sisters to eat it, but I think it's quite interesting how they would get gumamela flowers and they'd mash it to make bubbles.
Yes.
So
That
growing
too,
up,
we did that too.
you know, growing up in the States, we didn't have that.
Okay.
What was I doing? I was making mud pies. I'm sure they're making mud pies
You're
here
making
too.
mud pies here too? Yeah.
But we didn't have the gumamela flour to do that with. So when we created that flavor, and it was based on, you know, just a conversation like this, someone reminiscing their childhood. When they told me that they did that, I was like, oh, that would make an interesting flower, an interesting chocolate. Especially when you actually work with gumamela or hibiscus sabdorifa.
Yeah.
It isn't typically floral. It's actually kind of sour, almost like red berries.
Yeah.
So I take it you tried it too.
No, because I do know that some places offer it as they have it's like iced tea and things like that, and it does have those very sour flavor notes.
Yeah, it's quite unique. So it's not it's a flower that tastes like a berry, and but even more than that, its depth there is it's
Yeah.
something that a lot of us did as children. So for that to become a core memory or to evoke those memories,
Yeah.
we did something right. It's kind of
True.
like that ratatouille moment. A lot of chefs in the industry, they strive for consistency in food.
Yeah.
That's why we have recipes. But I think one of those unspoken things that we also try to achieve is to bring you back, to remind you of those memories or those times that have passed.
Have passed, and or those special moments in life, right?
Yes.
So speaking of, is there a flavor that you offer or that you've created that is inspired by a specific memory for yourself?
Yes. So we have, and it's seasonal. It's Santol Membrillo.
Okay.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with membrillo, so it's actually a Spanish quince paste, or as they call like a fruit cheese. So that's typically served with like manchego cheese.
Okay.
So when my, I guess, would you call them ancestors? But
Okay.
generations and generations ago,
Yeah.
we actually had this, we didn't have quince here. It's not endemic to the Philippines.
no.
And our climate is not conducive for propagating it.
Yes.
So we used what was available, which highlights our ingenuity. And at that time, they used mango or they used santol.
Yeah.
So I grew up with that. When it was season, my aunts would take these recipes, they would create something out of it, and I grew up on this. So when people would say, "Oh, membrillo made from quince," I'm like,
Yeah.
"But have you tried santol?" So that was one of the first experiments that we did as chocolate.
Yeah.
So we deconstructed it, and it worked.
Actually, I find santol to be a very interesting ingredient. I mean, we all grew up eating it just with salt, and then now you see it in savory dishes, now in chocolate as well.
Yes.
So it is interesting. I do find it fascinating the way that you've been able to manipulate local flavors or unexpected ingredients into chocolate.
Thank you. I just think that sometimes we really need to go past the borders and really push it. Because our ingredients, our dishes and everything, it's really how we see it. It's how our interpretation is. So whenever you go to a restaurant or go to a cafe or try something different, whether it's just a regular adobo or something, the way that the chef prepares it or the way that it's made is kind of like look into their noggin.
True. That's very true.
So whether you're pushing the boundaries or not, I mean, you're really seeing, oh, this is how that person thinks,
Yeah.
or this is was inspired by their past, by their history, their
Yeah.
culture. It's also inspiring.
It's also very inspiring. I do have to agree with you. So, pushing boundaries. So, Filipino food has been gaining recognition globally. You know, the world is becoming more and more curious about Filipino food. What part do you think CMV Txokolat is playing in that whole narrative? Like, how are you bringing Filipino flavors into the global landscape?
I think by elevating Filipino flavors and creating bite-sized culture, one in a box, we're able to really share our history, our ingredients, what makes us unique with the world.
Yeah.
Now, with like language, for example,
Yeah.
yes, like I said earlier, there are some barriers, but through food, especially the way we curate it in a box
Yeah.
of chocolate, we're able to share this with people.
Yeah.
And because we are proudly Filipino, all of the Filipinos, whether they're here or they're abroad,
Yeah.
it's something to take pride in. Kasi ang layo naman yung nakarating.
True. True.
So when someone buys our chocolate and brings it with
Abroad.
them, they can share their history, those memories with others. And it allows them to say, wow, ang sarap naman ito. Or this is from the Philippines, but to have someone from, let's say, Europe say, wow, this is Filipino, this is top tier, or something like that, which I'm not tooting my horn, but we've heard from people from Belgium, from Switzerland, France, that our chocolate and the flavors behind them are quite interesting and are very good to their own standard. It highlights that Filipinos are capable of greatness, great craftsmanship,
World class.
of world class. And it's not even just us, saying we're the best alone, but also because we are encouraging as a culture and we do play well with others.
True. A few months ago, you mentioned that you had attended a chocolate festival in Italy, I believe.
Yes.
So, was there anything there that you picked up that you felt have been a big help in the way that you continue to create flavors now? Or what did you find there that maybe were similar to what we have here?
I actually saw a lot of opportunities. So when I was in Italy back in January, I attended the CGEP festival. So they had one pavilion that was just like all chocolate. Actually, I think it was like 1.5 pavilions.
Okay.
And I saw that it was more on the manufacturing side, so machinery and everything, machinery and equipment.
Yeah.
In that pavilion, there was one small thing. If I'm not mistaken, it was the International Cacao Chocolate, the IICCT.
Okay.
So they had clustered cacao from different parts of the world, and they invited different businesses who make bean to bar chocolate. And they're really highlighting the niche craftsmanship behind bean to bar there.
Yeah.
And I noticed that it's still in its infancy.
Okay.
I feel that it gives us the opportunity to use chocolate as a medium to really highlight our culture, to really continue to grow. And what we're actually doing, not just my company, but a lot of chocolate makers here in the Philippines are doing, already ahead of what's being done on the market. And it's quite unique.
Yeah. And
that inspiration wouldn't quite be there if we didn't have an interesting culture as it is.
True. So, speaking of opportunities, so what, are you working on anything new now? Maybe new flavors, new collaborations? What can we expect next from CMV Txokolat?
So aside from that peely one that I accidentally dropped earlier, so currently we are looking at creating more heritage dishes, but in chocolate bite-sized form.
Okay.
But we also want to do a little more exploring of our backyard, the Philippine countryside, so that way we can highlight different ingredients that aren't super mainstream.
Okay.
So at least that way we can soft launch or introduce them to the market, so more people would be interested. Compared to just what you find at your local palenque. So we want to highlight Philippine ingredients, culture, and really get more people interested.
So to continue that conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Is there a flavor profile that you have been maybe hesitant or afraid to try flavor-wise?
Actually, and it's something that we all have. I think it would have to be suman.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a unique flavor, but how do we encapsulate that and have it translate through chocolate, where it's the perfect harmony and balance of flavors?
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's hope you'll be able to tackle that sometime soon. Okay, so do you have any parting words for our viewers about chocolate, about chocolate and life? As Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates.
So I think my famous last words.
Your famous last words, yes.
Continue to support local, but also let's look at pairing Filipino flavors, culture, not just through chocolate. Let's champion those through our food, and incorporate it into our lifestyle. So that way we can support locals, whether they're the local producers, the farmers, or the companies. And let's keep on talking about Philippines. Let's continue talking about our culture and our history.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us today, Chris.
Thank you.
So what an inspiring conversation with Christian Valdes, showing us that chocolate is more than a sweet indulgence, but a form of storytelling, culture, and identity crafted with passion and purpose. Mga katribu, thank you for joining us on Pairfect. Don't forget to follow Daily Tribune for more stories that celebrate creativity, perseverance, and the people who shape our culture. And before we go, mga katribu, Grab Philippines is a question for you. Always on the go or craving something but prefer to stay in? There's a more convenient way to get things done. With Grab Philippines, traveling is made easier through Grab Car, reliable rides at your fingertips. And when you're feeling hungry, planning a last-minute gathering, or simply satisfying a late-night craving, Grab Food is ready to deliver quick, easy, and hassle-free. For everyday convenience, you can count on Grab. They have you covered. So until next time, once again, on behalf of Ms. Dina Ventura, I'm Elizabeth Timbol, and this has been Pairfect, where every story connects perfectly.
Welcome po mga katribos at maraming salamat for joining me dito sa Ask Manong Joe. May natanggap po akong tanong mula kay netizen Patricia Manalo. Sabi ni Patricia, may epekto ba yung gera ngayon sa Middle East sa supply ng kuryente dito sa Pilipinas? Tataas na naman ba ang singil sa kuryente? Paano naman kami? Susubukan ko hong isimplify ang explanation dito. Opo, Ms. Patricia, ang gulo sa Middle East ay nakakaapekto sa presyuhan ng kuryente sa Pilipinas. Karamihan sa fuel source na ginagamit ng generation companies ay imported. Nakabase sa world market prices ang presyuhan ng ating imported fuel source. Kapag may disruption na naging dahilan ng pagkaantala ng normal na supply chain, syempre, tataas ang presyo ng mga pinagkukunan ng fuel nitong mga generation companies, maging yan ay coal, LNG o langis sa international market. At dahil ang mga ito ang ginagamit para mag-generate ng kuryente, apektado ang presyo. Ang resulta, kapag apektado ang kanilang presyo, pati yung binebenta nila sa mga distribution utilities tulad ng Meralco, ay tataas din sa generation charge na nakikita sa ating bill. Bilang aksyon, agad naman iniutos ng aming mahal na chairman, Meralco chairman at CEO Manny V. Pangilinan o MVP, na i-review namin ang fuel supply mix ng Meralco para masigurong may sapat na supply at ma-manage ang tinatawag na price volatility ng kuryente. Ang Meralco po ay nakikipag-ugnayan na rin sa mga suppliers namin para kahit paano mapanatili at masikap nating ipatupad yung tinatawag na least cost sa ating generation charges hanggat sa makakaya natin. At ma-prioritize ang reliability ng sistema para maproteksyonan ang mga consumers. Kasabay nito, sinusuportahan din ng Meralco ang panawagan ng mahal nating Pangulo, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., at ng Department of Energy na palaksin ang kampanya sa energy saving at energy efficiency sa buong bansa. Ibig sabihin, hindi lang po dapat ang gobyerno ang magpatupad nito, kundi maging ang private sector ay dapat din kumilos. Kumbaga bayanihan at tulong-tulong po tayo. Ang masinop at matalinong paggamit ng kuryente ay simpleng pamamaraan pero may malaking epekto. Kaya mga kaliwanag at mga katribo, tandaan natin na ang energy efficiency ay hindi lang pagtitipid ng ating konsumo, kung hindi isang malaking tulong para sa buong bansa. Sama-sama po tayong mag-conserve ng electricity para masigurong may sapat na kuryente at kahit paano maging manageable ang presyo sa mga darating na linggo. Yan po ang aking sagot. Naway nakapagbigay ho tayo ng konting aral sa ating mga katribo at mga kaliwanag. Hanggang sa muli, ako po muli ang inyong lingkod, Manong Joe Saldariaga. Mag-ingat po kayong lahat.